Alrighty then. I guess I can. Thanks. This bloody software. Video's been recorded, but the audio has not been detected. I literally just checked it a minute ago. I tried to speak louder. You're still being crap. Anyway. So, a bit of a departure from what I normally do. Even though I do the sort of Oscar predictions and the sort of film stuff with Owen and AJ. I don't normally traipse into sort of the reviews and the list stuff. But after having to sit through Walk Like a Panther, and I guess to make up for the fact that Owen hasn't been able to see as many films as he can, I'm stepping into the breach to give out my top 10. This has been filmed and recorded after AJ, so I've seen his. I'd say it's a pretty strong list. Roughly, I've seen. You see that I've been to the cinema and I've looked at this 118 times. That doesn't include some multiple visits. In which case I've seen a film twice. Some of them do overlap, like I saw the IMAX version of Deadpool 2 as well as the standard one, which had different bits here and there. And so quite a lot of things I've also seen have been live theatre productions. So the NT Live stuff for like things such as Antony and Cleopatra, 12th Night. Oh no, sorry, 12th Night is the OSC. Julius Caesar towards the start of the year. Alleluia, the new play from Alan Bennett. There was also Julie, which is a more contemporary play, but it's an adaptation of a classic Ibsen, I think, or something like that. So there's been things like that, and with the RSC, it's been, I'm trying to think, 12th Night, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, and I think that Merry Wives of Windsor. Oh, and Troilus and Cressida. So there's been them as well. And there's been a couple of cases when I've been seeing remastered re-releases. To a lesser extent, Die Hard, because I had seen that a few years back in the cinema. But this year, I finally got to see the original Godfather on the big screen. And also 2001 A Space Odyssey, with the actual 15-minute break in the middle, of which I didn't put the lights up to let people go and get a drink or something, which was a bit confusing. There's also been other films that I've seen this year that I wouldn't recommend. There's not enough, I'd say, to make sort of a worst 10 list, but even though I saw it in 2019 because of my rules, Holmes and Watson is definitely in there. Robin Hood is definitely in there. Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald, I'd say is definitely in there. Just looking through the rest of my list, because unsurprisingly I didn't consider quite a few of the Ocean's 8. I'd say would be more towards the higher end of the list. It's not worst. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, just because it sort of really didn't go anywhere. To some extent. I don't try and go to sort of the bad ones, unless, of course, they get notoriously bad. Rampage was... I think it was bad on purpose, which I'm a bit confused by. Peter Rabbit was bad to me. Wrinkle in Time was bad. Walk Like a Panther, which I've already talked about. To some extent, Red Sparrow really wasn't that impressive. So things like that would be sort of my worst ones. My sort of short list probably had maybe 30 to 40. Just running through some here. Just the ones that I'd sort of, if you find them cheap, maybe online as part of an offer via Google or Amazon or Apple, whatever, you might want to check them out. Bombshell: The Head of the Lamar Story, nice little documentary there. Also on the documentary front, My Generation with Michael Caine and all that, and The Ice King, John Curry, has sort of local connotations as well, that one, so there's some interesting stuff there. Ghost Stories as a very interesting little alternative horror piece, I really rate. Thoroughbreds as a thriller horror piece, I rate. Nothing Like a Dame, which has actually been on TV over here over Christmas. Actually, it was on TV sort of in or around it came out anyway. But I like that. Mary and the Witch's Flower, I got the DVD of it somewhere in the last week or so with special sort of art cards. I even got sort of art prints. I got multiple copies because I put it down on the list for multiple copies, and they actually sent them, which I was surprised about. Really like that. McKellen Playing the Part, a nice little documentary about the sort of the workings and the story of Ian McKellen's upbringing. Miseducation of Cameron Post. Probably the film Boy Array Should Be. Considering how it seems to be missing a lot in terms of awards nominations, yet alone wins. King of Thieves, I'm less strong about in sort of recommending to you, but it is a very good sort of cast of performances from Courtney and a side bit from Gambon and Winston and Broadbent and Kane. There's enough there. House of a Clock in Its Walls, which for an Eli Roth film, I'm surprised about saying it's good. The Wife, I think there's a lot of stuff in that. I mean, there's a reason why Glenn Close is getting a lot of nominations and wins for her performance. A Star Is Born, I really just couldn't scrape it into my top 10. Nor sort of into my sort of favourite 15, but the music performances alone are sort of really solid. Shoplifters, probably the favourite foreign film that I've seen from 2018. I haven't seen Roma yet. I'm catching up probably as soon as it gets nominated at the Oscars on Tuesday. Disobedience, which is a very sort of interesting little piece about life in the Jewish community through certain events happening. Although you can probably guess them if you've seen the trailer for them. Wreck-It Ralph 2, I'd also recommend. Three Identical Strangers, really good documentary. Suspiria, just because of how weird it is, deserves to be seen. Sorry to Bother You, same as the last one, weird and deserves to be seen. Old Man and the Gun, so gentle that it's just really sort of, you can just sit down and watch it. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, for obvious reasons. And Bumblebee, because they actually made a Transformers film that was good. So much so I've actually seen it twice. Sort of necessity, because I didn't have any other films I wanted to see that fit into the space where Bumblebee fits. But I still enjoyed it the second time around. However, there are 5 that I'm going to highlight as like the ones that were on the cusp, because there was 15/16. I'm sort of doing the AJ rule here about putting 2 films together, in which case you already know what they are, but you don't know where they are on the list. So, in no particular order, the 5 honourable mentions, if you will. A Quiet Place. I just really like what they did in the whole concept of really sort of being a movie where sound actually did matter, and people actually complained that the other screens were too loud. So it really helps if you actually see A Quiet Place in like a 1 or a 2 screen cinema, maybe, and just hope that the other screen isn't like a giant sort of multi-blockbuster thing. But yeah, just the atmosphere behind it, really good. Hotel Artemis, I really did enjoy. I think it will eventually go down as being sort of a cult classic thing. I feel that the release schedule that it did have did hurt it. Certainly in the UK, didn't really give it much of a chance at all, because it was sort of submerged with other releases. I can't remember exactly what they are off the top of my head. Coco, because it did fall into actually opening probably around this time last year, end of January, rather than in November, like it was everywhere else. Because of course it is. That really just has a sort of nice flow through to it, and was the last Pixar movie that made me cry. Because Incredibles 2 didn't. That's why it's not in the list. Incredibles 2 probably should be in my other films you should watch, but not my not my honourable mentions. It's just, I've got used to, probably ever since Inside Out, I think everyone's made me cry, even The Good Dinosaur, and that is a forgettable film. But I just remembered that it did make me cry. Widows also gets an honourable mention. Just a really well done performance by the cast. It takes twists and turns. It's different enough, I'd argue, from having seen the British series, but it does sort of stand alone, and you sort of really shouldn't compare the two. I think Steve McQueen did a very good job. The only problem that I feel that the issue that had is the release schedule that it had, like being pushed like a big film as a Fox film rather than a Fox Searchlight, to actually go for the right audience. I think in the long term, that's what's going to affect it. And then They Shall Not Grow Old, the World War I documentary put together by Peter Jackson using the footage from the Imperial War Museum. And footage from the Imperial War Museum, and re-enhanced with the Veta digital sort of technology. Amazing to see, and combining it with the BBC sort of audio package of interviews from people that lived through that. It's just a very well put together combination, and very timely. You know, what with the centenary of the end of the war. So, as I sort of hinted at with Coco, and as I mentioned before, if you haven't seen the other videos when I've mentioned the way I'm bringing this up, my list is involving simply films that opened in 2018. Which means, technically, there could be some films in here that come from 2017 in the American releases, and also 2017 releases in the, well, I say 2017 releases in the UK. There's a few films that are in which case I've actually just realised that I've left one out. Even though I've got my rules up, I actually have forgotten one. Also making my honourable mentions, because I remembered that I didn't. I saw this in 2017, but it technically opened in 2018. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I want to sort of put it in the top 10, but I feel that I can't do now. Just because of me not really wanting to shift the 10 that I've already set out. But, yeah, there's been enough plaudits for that from this channel, and probably from the awards people anyway. Although, that being said, there's some obvious ones that are in there anyway. If you combine AJ's lists and Oscars and stuff, there's a few that aren't, though. So, I guess we'll get to it. So, as I work out, wow, I really need to roll this in, because I've gone 15 minutes blabbing. So I guess I won't be talking as long about the 10 as we get to them. So, number 10, Bohemian Rhapsody. Honestly, it's only in here for 1, my fandom of the music, and 2, Rami Malek's performance, which culminates in one of the best scenes this year in movies, which is sadly edited down. It's not the full version, but the Live Aid sequence that closes the end of Bohemian Rhapsody is just exceptionally done. The work that was done on getting the choreography pretty much to the T, exactly how it was in terms of the actual footage from Wembley Stadium back in 1985. But, full credit as well, especially to Gwilym Lee, because at times you really actually think it's Brian May. He's that good at it. Also, Lucy Boynton is very good as Mary. Ben Hardy as Roger Taylor. Joe Mazzello as Roger Deacon. Sorry, John Deacon. But then you've got Aidan Gillen in there as well. Alan Leach with his very sort of like pantomime villain style-esque character. Tom Hollander as Miami Beach. Mike Myers in the cameo where I didn't even realise it was him until I thought about it. Every time I saw him in the trailers, I was like, wait, that's Mike Myers? I didn't recognise it. Just really well put together, and just about makes it on. In all honesty, 3 Billboards could replace that as my number 10, but I'm keeping it there. So, number 9. This is, just like with AJ, the combination of Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War. They're really so close together, I feel I can't sort of really separate them as much. To be honest, if Black Panther was on its own, it may be more towards the top end of the list. But I just felt that I had to combine them because of the story arc of the two. Again, how close they were released together. And because they both deserve probably a spot on the top 10. So that's why it sort of aggregates down to 9. Because I want to give more shout-outs to other films that you may not have seen. Rather than, the number 1 and number 2 films that took the box office last year. At least I think it was number 1 and number 2, as I get the figures from Box Office Mojo. I believe it is. Certainly I know that Black Panther was the highest grossing film. Yeah, and Avengers was number 2. Narrowly behind. So I'm correct. I'm pleasantly correct. That's the right terminology to use. Probably not. But the key thing is, as Nostalgia Critic has brought up in his video, you've had quite a number of strong films, but certainly this year alone, although to a lesser extent with Ant-Man and the Wasp, but you can sort of see what's going on. interesting villains that you actually sort of sympathise with. You understand what Killmonger's gone through. You understand what Thanos has gone through. They are tortured souls that don't want to do it, but know that they have to. Despite the fact, maybe in the back of their mind, they know it's going to come to naught. Unless with Thanos and, that. In all honesty, when it comes to this year's top 10 for 2019, if I do one, you're probably going to see Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame bound together again. Maybe even combined with Spider-Man Far From Home, because they're being released that close to each other. They're sort of going to meld into one, because it's going to be the story arc of building up to Endgame and then building up completely afterwards. Yeah. I don't feel there needs to be much said about Black Panther and Avengers, really, so I'll leave it at that. The first of the ones that I really think you should check out, number 8, Free Solo. It honestly is... It's probably between that and They Shall Not Grow Old as my favourite documentary, because I'm always going to try and get documentaries and like children's films or animated sort of things, whatever, somewhere on my list of 10. And for me, Free Solo is the one that blew me away. Mainly just because it's more accessible. They Shall Not Grow Old, at least in the UK, is a 15 certificate, because they do show graphic images of dead people in the trenches. Whereas Free Solo, I believe, is a 12A. I better just have a quick look at the BBFC. It may be a PG, but no, it is a 12A because of infrequent strong language. But yeah, the story of Alex Honnold and sort of his life of free soloing, which, if you don't know, is climbing up rocks and mountain sides with no ropes, not just a safety rope, no ropes at all. And it's literally some of the camera angles that Jimmy and Elizabeth, the co-directors, managed to get. More Jimmy, because Jimmy is the guy that really focuses on filming sort of things like this, like climbing up the things even with ropes. And I mean, it's sort of, at some bits, it's like, that he survives because he's been at like Q&As and he's been active promoting this. But just at some bits, it's literally like, oh my god, he's going to die. It's that well done. It's just, the shots really give you the idea of scale of like how crazy this is. And then when you look at the mentality of it, which is sort of more Elizabeth's side of looking at the man rather than the actual act, the fact that he finds this normal just because of that's the way he just goes to escape and everything, being sort of on the edge of life and death. It's a fascinating sort of character study, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's on very soon on Nat Geo, wherever you are in the world, because this is rightfully getting a lot of plaudits. The only reason I say that, I would have Won't You Be My Neighbour in here like AJ had, but one, its release over here was extremely, extremely limited, and two, it hasn't been released on DVD over here yet. There's no release date yet. I could maybe be able to see it via means, but I sort of don't want to. until it officially comes out. If it gets to a point where it's never going to officially come out in the UK, I'll probably have a resort to it, and then retroactively, this might take the number 8 spot in terms of documentary. May even be higher, depending how I feel about Won't You Be My Neighbour. But yeah, Free Solo is an exceptional work, deserving all the nominations and all wins that it is getting at the minute. As I knock everything on the floor. Brilliant. So number 7. One I was championing for a while. And I still rate, and I still think you should see. Number 7 is Leave No Trace. I mean, the fact that, like, the critics have given it 100%, I think, still on Rotten Tomatoes. Let me just double check. Yeah, wow, 208. Jeez, I didn't realise that. It's just a really well put together story about the story of Will and his daughter Tom, which clearly they used Tom because her name is Thomasin, so they just kept it like that. But yeah, it's the soldier that's got PTSD that basically live in parks, go from time to time just in the forest rather than be in an actual sort of fixed home and whatever. Basically making ends meet by getting food and supplies in from the local towns, basically by selling the painkillers, which I guess don't really work on him or have adverse effects, being sold to other veterans to get the money. And it's just a really sort of good thing of sort of working together, and just sort of the story that Ben goes through and his issues that he's had, but then also Thomasin, who's sort of like 13 or 14, that's sort of coming to terms with her life and what she wants. It's a exceptional piece of work. I'm so pleased that it's got the critical response that it has, and it's a powerful piece of filmmaking. The fact that I don't remember the exact day, but the fact it was like maybe April that I remember it coming out here, it's just, I hope it gets at least something from the Spirit Awards and that it doesn't get forgotten about. I mean, I guess the fact that the National Board of Review did give Thomasin to breakthrough performance, which, in a year with Elsie Fisher in 8th grade, which doesn't come out here till April, so it's not in the list. Along with being classified in the top 10 indies, which I guess was sort of by default, considering it's in the Independent Spirit Awards. But also, actually looking at this, getting a LA Film Critics Association for Best Director. The only other sort of win that it's had. I'm pleased to see that it is getting a good response, and I hope more people see it, in all honesty. Number 6, if I can remember what it is. Oh, it's that one. It's the one where I can actually grab the DVD of it. Which is somewhat of a sense of I really rate it. Mission Impossible Fallout. Yes, it is the Sainsbury's exclusive, which apparently has a booklet. probably in here. But also, the Sainsbury's edition does have, as you can see there, different artwork. I can't remember how it is exactly. I think it's just an action shot, but yeah, the artwork on the this edition is the Halo jump from out the back of the plane. I honestly thought you couldn't top 5. I know AJ went into this quite a bit as well. I rate 2 as sort of like a maybe so bad it's good sort of film. Because I get the idea of what they were trying to do as to make it more action orientated than spy, which is what you get from a John Woo film. But I really love the first one. The third one, I understand, and I like the different route that it took in terms of the villain not being sort of substantial. The fourth one was okay, but it wasn't atrocious. All I vaguely remember from that one is it's the Russian bloke from like Night Watch and all that just being a rubbish villain in retrospect. But then, you know, the fifth one with Sean Harris. And then this Fallout sort of making it all wrap into everything that makes sense. Henry Cavill, including the stash that may have destroyed or really put the bloody DCEU on a rocky ground. Rebecca Ferguson is pretty good. I'm trying to remember her name. Oh wow, she isn't even credited. Oh, I saw her in Julie, the play. I'm trying to remember what it is. She was the one that was in... what film? I'm trying to remember. Vanessa Kirby. There she is. What was she in? Oh, that was it. I saw her in the, again, more theatre stuff, Streetcar Named Desire. When she played Stella. Oh wow, she's actually going to be in Hobbs and Shaw, I guess, as some relative of Shaw, considering the character's surname is Shaw. And also she was Princess Margaret in the first 2 seasons of The Crown. Of course, getting recast. Apparently, Vanessa Kirby is Helena Bonham Carter. But there you go. But just really sort of, again, the cast really worked. Even though it's, 2 hours and 20 minutes? Maybe it was 2.5. Because the films are different, because obviously they're projected, at least over here, at 24. And obviously these will be at 30, so you take down the frames and all that. It was sort of so breakneck, but at the same time, it sort of everything made sense. That I think this is one of the very few sort of really long action films that I saw this year where I didn't look at my watch when I was like, how long have we got? Normally I do at the start, so then I actually know what time I'm coming out in case I need to go to other films and whatever. For Mission Impossible, I didn't look a bloody thing. I was just immersed in the film and everything that was going on. And Sean Harris and, you know, Alec Baldwin, Tom Cruise himself. The fact that they actually kept the scene in where you see him break his foot and they just keep it in. They didn't try and do a better take. They just honestly kept it in. It's just like, okay. Angela Bassett as well as the CIA person. And of course, Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg as the agents, along with Rebecca Ferguson. Just really, really well put together. I am overjoyed that they're actually doing more, because I honestly thought that it was going to be, this was going to be the end. But yeah, love it. So top 5, and here's another one that I think has gone forgotten about because of being released as it was in sort of March and April. And that is You Were Never Really Here. One of the best roles I'd say I've seen Joaquin Phoenix do. You know, it's really sort of a combination of like Taxi Driver and I guess Leon to some extent, maybe. Basically, you know, the story of this man, this Joe, literally, rescuing people, helping people out of tight binds, but, you know, then at the same time torturing the people that have done the wrongs, while caring for his elderly mother, and still being traumatized by what he did in the military, what he did in the FBI, what happened to him as a child with his mum, by the abusive dad. And yeah, the fact that it's a very sort of conspiracy thriller style thing, like stuff with involved of you know, a senator's daughter getting abducted, and then the senator commits suicide, amongst other things. It's like, really, it's a shame we haven't seen more as well, I'd say, of the young actress, Ekaterina Samsonov. Admittedly, she is only sort of 16, so there's sort of more that can be done, or more that she can do. Especially technically, because they were both 2017 films, also being in Wonderstruck, which sort of got ignored about, but had a lot of awards acclaim behind it before it actually came to the actual nominations here and there. You know, an amazing ending as well as to what goes on. Lynn Ramsey did a very good adaptation of this novella, directed it as well, of course, and the Johnny Greenwood soundtrack is really good as well. But it actually won at the British Independent Film Awards along with sound, and got some big recognition at Cannes, be it 2 years ago now, because it's all completely out of sync. It's got nominations for the Spirits. I'm hoping it gets something there at least, so it gets on the list. But yeah, really exceptional film. Speaking of exceptional, as I go again to my I'd say pile of DVDs. It's literally only 2 DVDs, because some of these films haven't come out on DVD yet over here, or if they have, I haven't bought them because I've either got them digitally or aren't buying them because they haven't got a digital copy and just waiting for them to get cheaper. But number 4, Isle of Dogs. If it can actually focus, autofocus, do something. Oh, maybe. Oh, that'll do. Sort of the cover art alone. Is it even the same inside? Why can't I not bring it out of its sleeve? What the hell? Anyway, I mean, I really just love. You know, as you may have seen from other things that we've done on here, I am a massive fan of Wes Anderson's work. They actually had, at one of my local cinemas, a whole retrospective on his career from Bottle Rocket all the way through to early screenings of Isle of Dogs, with dog-friendly screenings as well, I will add. Still trying to get this out of the bloody case. What the hell is going on? Is it stuck in or something? Ugh. Right, while I still try and get that out, the casting was perfect. All the voices were really well done. And just the story as well. Sort of verging on a Japanese fable, but being brought to life, if you will. Yeah. Is it honestly just a plastic wrapper that's on it that's causing the issue? I'm having more of an issue with this than describing the film. It's just, you can, It's that good that I actually want to look at the art cards that are in it, because I only got this somewhat recently. Part of me is thinking just slash the plastic to see if we can sneak it out that way, because it might be the plastic that's stuck. Maybe. If I can slash it. It probably doesn't help, but I haven't got much strength in one hand from the list. Or not being able to see as many films. But I can't get this out. But yeah, as a Wes Anderson fan, I was hyped for this. I willingly saw it, I think, at least twice, maybe even 3 times. Just because it charmed the hell out of me. It was probably sort of my Old Man and the Gun in sort of terms of like a gentle film which really charmed the hell out of me. All the voices, Cranston was great, Norton was great, Balaban was great, Goldblum was great, Murray was great, Koyu Rankin as Atari Kobayashi, Kunchi Nomura as the mayor, Akira Takayama as the major, Greta Gerwig as the girl, Frances McDormand as the interpreter, Scarlett Johansson, Harvey Keitel, F. Murray Abraham. To some extent, Yoko Ono sort of playing herself? Maybe? This is actually just getting freaking ridiculous. Ken Watanabe, just randomly in there, just as a little character. I'm honestly thinking that the plastic must be stuck or something to the inside. No wonder nobody bought this, because they can't get it out of the fucking box. Jeez. I can't even... Really? Angelica Houston was in it? I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. It's a bloody... And Courtney B. Vance as the narrator. That was just nice little touches. Oh my god. It slid out. Progress. Success. Stuff. I haven't seen the art cards that are in here. Put that over there in the bin. Oh wow, there's an actual thing for RSPCA tying into please find your dog. Wow, I'm just looking. Better put that disc down there temporarily. Oh, I'm just looking at the efforts that's gone into this packaging as well. You can on the inside sleeve you can have your own Pray for Atari and Spots poster. That's ridiculous. That's an added feature that I didn't know you got with this. And then with the art cards, I don't think this is Amazon exclusive. Just trying to slide some of them out to get them on. Just like the design of these as well. It's weird that I start with Bill Murray, but there you go. Oh wow! I take it back. These are double-sided art cards. So we've got Bill Murray, we've got Tilda Swinton, we've got Liev Schreiber, we have Edward Norton, we have Koyo and Konichi. We have Atari and the Mayor, Goldblum and Balaban. And then the beautiful pair of Cranston and Johansson. I didn't even realise they were double-sided. I thought it was just like 5 art cards. I didn't realise that they actually meant 10. That makes me even more pleased that I bought it physically. I think as well as digitally, because again, I just wanted to give the film a lot of love. As now I'm struggling to actually get it in the bloody sleeve, because I try and maintain everything as it is. There we go. Why that took forever to get out the box though? I guess I now want to move it further down the list because the DVD is such a bitch to actually get out of its own box, which it shouldn't be because it's just literally a cardboard sleeve. Have they just packaged it poorly? Stuck it in too far? No, I think it's just the fact that it is an entirely tight-ass squeeze. Yeah, it might be just... might be, as I say, partially due to the fact that I'm struggling with my hand and whatever with my grip, but that filled up a lot of time. But I was determined to actually look inside it because it turns out there was actually an added feature to it. I didn't know. Anyway, enough about that. Number 3. Black Klansman. AJ said a lot about it. It really may have helped that it's higher up on my list because I did get to see this as part of a UK preview Q&A thing with a Spike Lee thing, but just like the story's interesting enough, but just the actual twists and turns that it actually does take in terms of the story. It's not just a seemingly straightforward thing. It does sort of, and then the sort of the message that it sort of conveys at the end by moving it to contemporary times with similar issues, maybe makes it resonate more, maybe, I'd say. But mainly I'm putting it in there just because bloody Isaiah Whitlock Jr. gets to say his wire line. It's just the honest bit when it's just like, shit. And as soon as that was in it, I was like, yes! Spike Lee knows the genius of the wire. Harry Belafonte does a great turn as well as Jerome Turner, the victim of the atrocities from even before the 70s. Just really powerful. I really rate it. It's good to see it's getting so much recognition despite coming out like August time-ish across America and here. Weird as well that technically BlacKkKlansman is a Jason Blum movie. So it's not just Glass and Split and Paranormal Activity. He does actually make films which might actually be in legit contention. Well, I say that because obviously he did I think produce on Get Out as well, which Jordan Peele did produce on this as well. To be fair, but just a really, really great piece of work. I can't wait to see what Spike, and to a lot of extent, what John David Washington does next. He had sort of like a somewhat cameo-ish in Old Man and the Gun, which sort of was a interesting surprise. There's nothing at the minute with him credited as to what he's doing, but it's been a heck of a year for him. Actually, looking at it, it's a shame that he actually isn't in for... I'm just looking here. He isn't in like the Rising Star Awards with the BAFTAs. I guess because enough of his stuff, people, because he's only been really been in 2 major films to some extent. Because I don't think Monster has had much resonance, or Monsters and Men sort of outside of America. But as I say, I'm still intrigued as to what he does next, sort of outside of his appearance in Ballers. Like, I want to see him on the big screen sooner rather than later. Wow, he was actually technically a producer on the Book of Eli. That's weird. Number 2. Bad Times at the El Royale. Again, I'd say this is somewhat of an obvious one. This is where sort of me and AJ do sort of cross ideas and whatever on pretty much the works of Drew Goddard. If you go through the fact that he's okay, it was in the latter seasons, but he did some Buffy, did some Angel, did some Alias, did some Lost, did the first 2 episodes of Daredevil, did one of the Defenders ones. When Defenders arguably got better because it wasn't anything to do with the movie release that they did, which really, I think, hurt it. But, on top of that, Cloverfield, I think as a concept, was really good. The fact that it went into Cloverfield Lane, less much Cloverfield Paradox, less said about that the better. But Cabin in the Woods, just an interesting sort of comedy horror thing. Co-writing World War Z, which is getting maybe a sequel, but then it's a video game sequel, but what? A great adaptation of The Martian. Technically script consultant as well on Deadpool 2, which makes sense considering he's doing X-Force coming up. Apparently, that's even happening. But yeah, his second time as a director. and just the way it twists and turns. You know, as AJ said, it is very Tarantino-esque. Even coming with a runtime of like 2 hours and 20 minutes. But Jeff Bridges is brilliant as the priest. Cynthia Erivo as the soul singer. Dakota Johnson. And Kaylee Spenny as the sisters. Hemsworth as the cult leader, which ties more into that. John Hamm as the home supply salesman. And then the what you want to go, the concierge. That's the word. The concierge at the hotel, and then sort of everything that happens around it, including the weirdest cameo of Xavier Dolan I've seen. Which, considering Xavier Dolan's work, is saying something. I just really rated it. It's a shame it was only here in cinemas here for a week before getting buried, because it didn't get dramatically released at the same time. The issue that it had, certainly in my cinema, is because of the delays that it had in terms of bringing out A Star Is Born being delayed by a week. It meant that the week that this came out was the same week that my cinema actually wanted to show A Star Is Born, and there was a lot more momentum for that being shown than there ever was with Bad Times at the El Royale. I really, really love it. And it, it just about made its budget at the box office, so via home media and streaming, it will hopefully, be somewhat of a success, or at least hold. It's obviously it's got a home media release in America. It's coming out here, I think, in the next week or so. It is one that I am desperate to get, either digitally or physically, or just like with the case of Isle of Dogs, probably both. I'm trying to see if I can double check when I can buy it digitally, and if it's actually at affordable prices and not stupidly overpriced. Top pre-orders, Bad Times at the El Royale. Oh, they've changed the picture on the February 4th. Damn it! I've got to wait 2 weeks. 2 weeks, damn it. Is the DVD coming out the same day? Oh. The DVD's coming out the same day. That's different. That actually is different. Okay. That doesn't normally happen. There's normally at least some sort of early release. Okay. Something else that caught me off guard then. And then I guess the number one, as I'm nearly an hour, because I've got to go through this and timestamp all this shit. It's sort of not a surprise, considering my rules and how much I really, really, really loved it. My number one film of the year is quite a lot of people's number one film of last year. 2017, that is. And that's The Shape of Water. Again, maybe sort of swayed because of how fond I am for Del Toro's work and whatever. But just, for me, aside from all the legal stuff and whatever that sort of allegedly have gone against it, but I haven't even heard anything yeah, I'm just looking here that the suit was dismissed from somebody else saying it compared their stuff a lot. But for me, it's, just like Del Toro has said in sort of stuff, it is clearly a lot of inspired by Gilman from Creature from the Black Lagoon. Just the design of Doug Jones's Amphibian Man, which he plays beautifully as well. You've got Sally Hawkins, the sort of mute cleaner that sort of finds herself, quite literally, if you will, through the thing. Michael Shannon as, I guess, the villain, the colonel that's studying the asset, that's all in all just wanting to sort of torture it, just to research it, to get more details on it, rather than actually care about it like Elisa does. And it's it's hard to just describe, Stuhlbarg as the spy that's studying the creature as well, but for the Russians instead. Octavia Spencer as the cleaner co-worker with Elisa. Richard Jenkins as the neighbour of Elisa. Just, it never felt. Again, this was one where I didn't look at my watch again, but at the same time, I felt like I didn't want to see it again in the cinema, because I'd seen it just beautifully in sort of a screening and everything. But in all honesty, the line that you see in the trailer and the open sort of the movie from Giles really sums it up. If I spoke about it, if I did, what would I tell you? I wonder. Would I tell you about the time? It happened a long time ago, it seems, in the last days of a fair prince's reign. Would I tell you about the place, a small city near the coast, but far from everything else? Or, I don't know, would I tell you about her, the princess without voice? Or perhaps I would just warn you about the truth of these facts, and the tale of love and loss, and the monster who tried to destroy it all. Just really just beautifully well done. An incredible sort of piece of work. And gladly at the top of my list in terms of my films of the year. So there you go. I've just gone an hour. This will take ages to be sent over the internet to Owen. Check out all the other content here. We have Oscars reactions and analysis coming up later this week. We have Screen Actors Guilds to cover, Writers Guilds, Directors Guilds, BAFTAs, the Spirits, the Oscars themselves over the next month to month and a half-ish. AJ's movie reviews as well coming up. Just recently went up was the Unbreakable Split Glass trilogy combination analysis. Owen's going to have some sip and snacks and some stuff with the Voices of Liberty and various other things from the parks and all that coming up. I'm going to be having sip and snacks, maybe some gaming stuff, maybe some more movie stuff. I guess the only thing I can really sort of warrant covering because of the crossover appeal would be Fighting With My Family. Oh, and the wrestling stuff as well. Myself and Owen covering the best and worst, although we try and cover the best more than the worst to try and be somewhat more positive than whatever in terms of what's coming from the wrestling world. All that here on this channel, so give it a subscribe. We hope you all enjoy it. And with that, I will see you on the next video.